The pandemic caused so much suffering that it was necessary to create relief funds to help people. So why were those relief funds spent on drones and tanks? Was that the problem? Hello there, you 5.4 million awakening wonders rejecting the narratives of the deceivers, awakening together here, concressing as one, becoming one unifying, intercommunicating force, independent, but still somehow connected. This is a place where you can come to communicate about the news and your personal opinions and feelings without fear of censorship. Hit me up in the comments below. Let me know what you think about the stuff we're doing on our channel more generally. If you want to come and see me on tour, you can. There's a link in the description. And we're going to put up a little click for you so you can get on my mailing list so we can stay in communication no matter what happens to us, because you never know in this crazy world. Today, for example, we're talking about a wonderful story primarily based in the United States where COVID relief funds that were set up to help all the suffering, and my guess would be that it would be ordinary working people that suffered most during the pandemic, because there was one of the biggest wealth transfers in history. So it's not rich people or powerful institutions or big tech or big banks that suffered, is it? It was ordinary people. So those COVID relief funds, where did the money go? Oh no! Oh God, I've got a terrible cough. Jesus, get some tanks and drones immediately. This is legit, man. Check it out. Last week, the White House announced that federal funding for COVID-19 testing, treatment and vaccines would soon be depleted unless Congress approves a new spending bill. While Republicans are largely responsible for the ongoing congressional stalemate, the Biden administration has been criticized for encouraging local governments to use the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA funds, a $1.9 trillion pandemic relief aid package that was approved last March, on policing in the midst of an ongoing pandemic. So, there was $1.9 trillion generated to help with the consequences of the pandemic and the result in suffering that many of the measures exacerbated, some people believe. Let me know in the comments below what you think about that. And some of it has found its way into the hands of the police force, and especially militarizing the police force. Just so you know, I'm not like an anti-police person. I know people in the police force that are absolutely fantastic, community-minded, sincere, caring people. But using COVID relief funds to militarize the police, almost as if they're expecting unrest and uprising. Why would you think there's going to be unrest and uprising? Because we're behaving appallingly towards our citizens. Why don't you behave less appallingly? Cheaper to get tanks, especially as we nick the money off them already. I want more cities and states to use some of the $350 billion we sent them on the American Rescue Plan to fight crime, to keep our communities safe by hiring more police officers for community policing and paying police overtime, said President Biden, and purchasing gunfighting technologies. All right, look, community policing, we all agree with that. Paying police overtime. Listen, if you're going to have a police force, you want the people in the police force to feel like they're being well remunerated and connected. You don't want them all on edge, feeling like they're angry and not appreciated and armed. That's not a situation that I think is particularly desirable. This additional thing, gunfighting technologies. We've got this technology that fights guns. What is it? It's a fucking tank driving down your high street. Whoa! It sounded fun when it was a gunfighting technology. Interesting piece of language. It's one of the things we're always on the lookout for, isn't it? The Orwellian turn of phrase. Language that obfuscates rather than reveals. Language that deadens inquiry rather than encouraging it. State and local officials across the country have heeded this call, and some towns and cities are now approving police requests to spend pandemic relief funds on drones and armoured vehicles. Now, there's a few things that this indicates. That the pandemic relief funds are no longer required, but I would say then, what's the next port of call for those funds? Surely it's helping vulnerable people, communities, businesses in need of assistance. And if some of that money is going towards the police, if it's consensual policing from community supporting police officers, and let me know in the comments below if you work for the police force. For me, I believe we need communities that are consensually policed by the people that live in those communities, that feel connected and integrated. So it's a sense of togetherness and unity rather than an increasingly militarized, weaponized police force that clearly is not acting on behalf of the community, but acting on behalf of the state. And as you know, the state operates in conjunction with big business. So essentially what you get is a corporate state state that is militarized to do what? Crush dissent, prevent communication, stop popular uprisings. These are just things that occur to me when I look at that information. You can tell me in the comments below what you think. The Kingsport Police Department, a small agency in Tennessee, purchased 2 military-grade drones in early March. Why do they need military-grade? What are they anticipating? What about this drone? This is a normal one. Can it drop bombs? Well, no, it's not necessary. You can fucking keep it then! And Dixon County City Council in California is considering using ARPA funds on a police drone program, body-worn cameras, and a license plate reader program. It sounds to me like that's implementing and accenting already existing state power. These little counties and stuff, military-grade drones, is about spying, data capture, oppression. That's not the direction we're supposed to go in. I thought the pandemic was a shared medical emergency that required extensive measures in order to protect the vulnerable. What a great goal. How are we protecting the vulnerable this week? Drones? What new theory about COVID management has emerged that the solution is drones? You know how we're going to get rid of COVID? How? Bomb it! The use of pandemic funding on police technology has been criticised by local activists like Jasmine. There's plenty of money for people, it's just being spent in ways that are antagonistic to working class Americans. Jasmine, who asked to withhold her last name because she fears police retaliation. That's what she told Motherboard. I would like to believe in the possibility of consensual policing, where good, decent, honest police officers and good, honest, decent citizens of all colours have a sense of investment in their communities. Democratically run communities where the police force are answerable to the community and the community are answerable to the police force, and there's a sense of togetherness. Maybe even the word force isn't right. There's no doubt a requirement for a re-evaluation in policing. The last couple of years has shown us that in many, many ways. The question I'd like you to consider is, are the police working for the people in the community that they're supposed to serve, or are the police working for the state? And do you think that the state are working for you, or do you think the state are working with big business? These are the questions. Try not to get trapped down there against one another. If there's anything that you take from these videos, I want it to be this. Ordinary people, regardless of your culture, regardless of your background, regardless of your colour, regardless of the many ways we can't understand each other because of our unique experiences and unique backgrounds, we have to find ways of coming together. It's the thing they fear most, is that we'll put aside our differences and say, okay, if you'll leave us alone, we'll leave you alone. Whoever that us and you is. It could be the person next door, it could be a person 1,000 miles away in a country, ironically, that's getting droned. Although it seems more likely that you're going to get droned by your own police force in the coming weeks. DeKalb County in the Atlanta metro area used over $500,000 in pandemic relief funds to buy aerial drones. Flock automated license plate readers, additional license plate readers, and a mobile precinct. Millions more went to other police-related expenses. Meanwhile, the Franklin County Sheriff's Department in Missouri spent $334,000 of its $2.6 million allotment on a Lenco Bearcat armoured vehicle to replace a mine-resistant 60,000-pound armed personnel carrier that the county received previously. I mean, yeah, sure, our previous vehicle was mine-resistant, but those bastards out there, they got COVID. They're going to go further than mines. This thing's got to resist coughs and sneezes and people that are pissed off and tired of being pushed around. Get me my Bearcat. Butler County, Pennsylvania bought a $330,000 Gurkha armoured vehicle, and the Hancock County Board of Commissioners in Ohio approved the purchase of a Bearcat armoured vehicle with ARP funds at a price tag of around $250,000 earlier this month. Why are they buying all these Bearcats? What would Hill Street Blues be like if it was on now? Dun, 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 dun. Get back in your houses, you bastards! Jasmine said the government and police departments are fueling policing in response to a growing working class movement, reducing the size and scope of policing and against capitalist economic exploitation. The government at this point is honestly preparing for a war and retaliation against the working class. They treat us as if they're an occupying force in our community, she said. I think the technology that they're funding speaks to that. The state relies on the police to enforce capitalism, to protect property, and to essentially ensure that people are funneled into to exploitative labour practices. Well, Jasmine, no wonder she won't give her name out. She's well radical, ain't she? But what she's saying, in my opinion, is true. Why does Biden never specifically address or envisage a scenario where a Bearcat militarised vehicle would be most effective? What do you think that's going to do? Oh, quick, we better get a cat out of the tree, better pop down the local bakers to see if the community's okay. It's protest, it's dissent, it's people organising because they've realised that through democratic means they have no voice, we have no power other than the power of protest. Well, we've got the power of the Bearcat. There's always this narrative, particularly in the pandemic, that crime is spiking, that folks are becoming more violent, when in reality people are just becoming more and more desperate because they're working 40 hours a week, if not more, and are still unable to feed their families, said Jasmine. And so this narrative about crime is really just a justification for expanding the police state even further, such that when people push back, the state is ready to crush those movements. The agenda of the police force is in alignment with your own agenda. Well, whatever that agenda is, let me tell you, it ain't in alignment with your agenda. This is to do with the state, corporate power, and as Julian Assange told us many, many times, the function of the state is to take public money, your money, and to put it in the hands of private interests. Who do you reckon's making them Bearcats? Who do you think's making all this kit and equipment? Who do you think's making those drones? That's interesting. So, it doesn't matter what class or culture you're from, it seems that preparation is being made by the state via local police agencies and authorities to crush dissent. And by the way, where do you think that money came from? These millions of dollars, these hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on militarising the police force. It came from you. That's your money. Money that you worked for. Take your working week, divide it up into whatever percentage tax you pay. All that time, you were working for the government. And now we know what the government are doing with that money. Not providing COVID relief where it's most necessary, arming the police. So if ever you want to argue about where your tax dollars go, they've got a pretty good response waiting. It's called Bearcat. When we talk to people in the community, the things that they say keep them safe are housing, food and water security, said Jasmine, and also having pathways toward resolving conflicts that do not rely on criminalisation or the carceral state, that are based in transformative and restorative justice. Those are not things that police are equipped to do because the institution of policing is not actually here to keep individuals safe. What an interesting perspective that is. Now, my personal perspective is there are many people that work in police forces that are there for the right reasons. Good, decent, admirable people. What we've been talking about in the last few years are institutional problems within policing. Lack of connection between police and community. It seems to me that events in the last few years bear out the legitimacy of that argument. Now, wherever you are on the political spectrum, and my invitation to you would be to abandon that spectrum and create a new one, whether you're someone that's broadly in favour of what might be considered right-wing or left-wing movements, the idea of an empowered police force will only be attractive to you if you feel that the agenda of the police force is in alignment with your own agenda. Well, whatever that agenda is, let me tell you, it ain't in alignment with your agenda. This is to do with the state, corporate power, and as Julian Assange told us many, many times, the function of the state is to take public money, your money, and to put it in the hands of private interests. Who do you reckon's making them Bearcats? Who do you think's making all this kit and equipment? Who do you think's making those drones? You want communities that are run by you, democratically. So your fire services, your nursing, your teachers, your police are embedded in the community, part of the community, accountable to the community, that power and responsibility go hand in hand as the foundation of our communities, not in the induction of their terrible nightmare that requires militarisation, that requires your money in order to build forces that will impose their will. But that's just what I think. And what do I know? Look at me, just a bloke trying his best, wandering through life. Hit me up in the comments below and tell me your views and opinions, but make sure you're listening carefully to everything I'm saying and make sure you're checking in with your own biases, because those are the things we've got to get beyond. If you want to see me live, if you're in the UK, come. There's a link in the description to come and see me live. If you're not a member of my mailing list yet, please click on that, because I want direct connection with you. It's very important to me. Believe me, it's important that we have that direct connection. If you enjoyed this video, have a look at this one or this one. More important than any of that, if you can, and if it's possible, and it may not be for much longer, please stay free.